Hello and welcome to another Magic Duels gameplay. Today we're taking a look at a very interesting Sultai Mill deck, Sultai being the black, blue and green color combination, and this particular deck uses Sphinx's Tutelage as its only real win condition. So it's an enchantment that basically mills the opponents, puts a bunch of cards from their library into their graveyard, and if they're out of cards they can draw, then they lose the game. So instead of attacking with creatures, we're just milling the opponent. And Sphinx's Tutelage is a very powerful enchantment at milling people because it goes very quickly once you start drawing a few cards or have multiple tutelages in play. So if we want to use the tutelage as our win condition, we have to play some removal spells, a few ways to prevent combat damage, as we'll see here with Fog. So this is a card we don't really want to cast in the early game, but it's a late game card that basically prevents all combat damage for a turn. So if the opponent has a lot of creatures in play, this can still prevent all the damage to survive an extra turn. Of course, this is not a very good card usually, since it doesn't really advance your board state, it doesn't put any creatures in play, and it only delays the inevitable. But we have a few ways to get this back from our graveyard, so we can cast this multiple times to buy us some time to draw more cards and trigger the tutelage more. So that's why the Fog is in this deck. Then we also have a Jace, Vryn's Prodigy, since we have a lot of instants and sorceries we would like to cast from our graveyard, and he helps find the tutelage in the first place. So we can also easily transform him and then start using the minus ability and the plus ability, plus to defend ourselves, the minus to recast our spells. And if we do get to the ultimate, we could also use him to mill the opponent, but that's not super relevant. Then we get to Gatecreeper Vine, which is an early blocker that also fixes our mana and finds us an extra land. So it does it pretty much all. So very useful in this kind of strategy. We've got Visionary as a random blocker that also draws us a card. We've got Telling Time as a card draw spell, although it doesn't actually draw a card, it just puts the card in your hand, but it helps find the critical pieces. If you're trying to find a sweeper, or if you're trying to find a tutelage, it can help with that. We've got a few copies of Reave Soul to take care of some small to medium-sized creatures. We've got Guardians of Meletis, which is a very interesting card. It's an 0/6 defender, so all it does is block the opponent's creatures. And the fact that it has 6 toughness means that it survives our own and the opponent's Languish, which is a very popular card, so we can still keep this around after a Languish to help blocking ground creatures. Of course, it's not going to help against flyers, but I'm trying out 3 copies here. Then we have a Nissa, which finds us an extra forest, and if we do get to Transformer when we have 7 lands in play, we can start using our plus ability for some more card advantage. And we can always use the minus to make a blocker, and I guess we can also use the ultimate as an alternate win condition. So Nissa is pretty good. Then of course the tutelage, which is the centerpiece of the deck. Also note the 6 mana ability here to draw and discard, which does come up very often, since we can in the late game just use this to trigger the tutelage once more, which can be the difference between a win and a loss. Then we've got Hydrolash, which is sort of like a fog effect, but also draws us a card, so it doesn't lose us card advantage, only gives creatures -2/-0 until end of turn, but against all those token strategies this is still pretty good. We've got Read the Bones, 4 copies. We don't like losing life, but the Scry 2 and the Draw 2 cards is very important because it gives us card selection, helps us find the tutelage, and of course Draw 2 means that it triggers the tutelage twice, so in the late game this can do a lot of milling. Then we've got Languish ourselves, of course. Our Guardians survive it, and this helps clear the board of most creatures. We've got Possessed Skaab, which can rebuy some of our instants and sorceries. Unfortunately, can't get back an enchantment like Tutelage, but still getting back a Fog means we get to survive an additional turn. Then we've got Unholy Hunger as our big removal spell, and with Spell Mastery also gains us a bit of life. And then the mana base, 2 islands, 6 swamps, 6 forests. Then all the come into play untapped if you control the basic type, so Woodland Cemetery 2 times, to Drowned Catacomb, and to Hinterland Harbor, and then the full 4 Evolving Wilds since we are a 3-color deck. Alright, that's the deck. Now let's jump into some games and see how the deck does. Alright, let's take a look at our opener, which looks pretty bad here with no blue mana. And this one's interesting. We are on the draw, so I think we actually keep this one. It looks bad with only 1 land, but any second land will cost a Gatecreeper Vine. There we go. And this can get a black source. Then we can cast Vine, get a blue source, and go from there. The Spoiler of Souls, that's aggressive. So we might want to use a Reave Soul here to get rid of this. As we draw a Fog. Actually, I still like playing the Vine here. Get an island. Pass the turn. Goes to combat. And I think we can still take it here. Maybe we'll get a better creature we can block. A Liliana's interesting. So I think we just Reave Soul the Liliana at this point. Could just play the Tutelage now. Liliana transforming is not a huge deal. We don't really mind discarding cards. So yeah, I think I'll just play the Tutelage here. And then next turn plan to read the bones. We'll take some damage. We can block the spoiler if we want to. Still have Hydrolash and Fog. Alright, so Reave Soul takes care of the Gatecreeper, which is fine. Our opponent spent 2 mana and probably his entire turn doing that. We take 5. And yep, there we go, no other play. Mill the opponent. Guardians is also interesting, but I think I want to find more lands. I don't like taking 2 if we can't find an untapped green source. But we do have a lot of untapped green sources in the deck. Other option is just casting this Hydrolash. So Guardians is bad if our opponent has a second Reave Soul, which he could easily have. So if we read the bones, we could also find maybe a Languish. Yeah, let's go for it. Alright, there's a black source. Not really what we need, and an Evolving Wilds. I guess we'll take another black source here. And another Fog. Alright, so next turn we'll be able to do multiple things. Also note our opponent's a monocolor deck, so milling with Tutelage is super efficient. So hopefully we just don't die this turn. We'll take 5 down to 5, but then we'll have infinite Fogs. Gravedigger gets back Erebos' Titan, yep. Which will be indestructible. Mill our opponent. So let's see. Here we could still cast an Hydrolash, which will only take 1 from the Despoiler. So we can also cast a Reave Soul to kill Liliana, for example. Don't hate that. So cast Reave Soul on Liliana. And then keep up Hydrolash. Those attack. Hydrolash. So we'll only take one here. Mill our opponent. Opponent casts his Erebos' Titan, also milled another Despoiler here, which is relevant. So there's a Titan. Mill our opponent. So let's see. 6 mana available. We could read the bones, it's getting a little risky. We can still, of course, fog. I don't actually hate using read the bones. I don't think there's a way our opponent can deal 2 damage to us without attacking us. So yeah, let's read the bones. Leave up a green, we also have black in hand. And mill our opponent for a bunch. Don't really need more lands, just want to find another tutelage. Mill our opponent. And pause the turn. So we have at least 4 fogs here, counting the Possessed Skaab as a fog. So that's a lot of turns to use the tutelage. Hopefully we survive until then. There are some cards that could get us, like this Shadows of the Past could kill us, for example. Everyone attacks, cast Fog. Take no damage. And let's see what our opponent does. Nothing. Mill our opponent. So we can cast Elvish Visionary here, leave up our blue, which will mill our opponent also. Hydrolash is nice. So we can cast a Guardians. We have to keep up fog because our opponent still has another Despoiler which he can get back. So I think the play here is just play Guardians and plan to fog again. So let's do that. Pause the turn. Opponent doesn't do anything here, alright. Or does he get back the Despoiler? He does. So there's the spoiler. Gravedigger gets back Kothofad, alright. And Bone Splinters will kill Guardians, which is also fine. So Kothofad is an interesting one. I don't think we care about it. Cast another Fog. No need to block. Mill our opponent. Play a land. Think we use the Possessed Skaab to get back a fog here. And pause the turn. still haven't found a second tutelage, but looks like this one could go the distance. Fog. I would like to get to a point where we can just use Unholy Hunger plus Hydrolash, so we don't have to cast a fog for a turn. But looks like that might be difficult. So there's Kothafad. So your opponent can start drawing extra cards. Down to 14 cards. So here we can cast a Gatecreeper, or actually what I like is just activating the tutelage and then casting a fog. Seems the most mana efficient play. We could still, let's see, 3, 6. So we can still cast a Gatecreeper Vine, getting a forest, and then cast fog and activate the tutelage. So we can pause a turn here. Opponent draws. Goes to combat. Cast another fog. And no blocks. Make sure we activate the tutelage end of turn. Alright, a Languish is an interesting play from the AI. Let's use this in response. Discarding... I guess we can discard Unholy Hunger. Mill the opponent. So it draws 2 cards. Mill our opponent. And everything's gone. Alright, sweet. So yeah, I guess we just pause the turn here. And win the game. Sweet. Let's move on to the next one. Alright, let's take a look at our opener and 6 lands we cannot keep. This hand is fine. Not great, but we have Evolving Wilds, which will likely get a blue source, so we can Telling Time, which should find us a green source, so we'll have all our mana, and we already have a tutelage. So all this hand really needs is some lands to cast our spells. And I guess some card draw wouldn't hurt. So we already have a double black for a potential Languish. Up against blue-green, no early plays, which is good for us. And I guess we can wait until our opponents end step to Telling Time. If they somehow counter this, then our tutelage will resolve, which is more important. A land, and still tapped since our opponent doesn't have island or forest in play. So off to a pretty slow start. And Welkin turn is a play, so looks to be still a creature deck. And here, unfortunately, we can't keep any of these green cards, but we are forced to draw one of them. Take the Languish in our hand, put the Vine on top, not that it really matters here. So that's the downside of Telling Time. If you only want one of the cards, you still have to draw a second one. So I guess here we have the option of casting Hydrolash. Guardians doesn't do much. We could also just resolve tutelage, which doesn't seem bad, since Hydrolash can prevent more damage in the future and displays around a potential counterspell. So it's important to get down the tutelage early. So this will also start milling a turn sooner. And at least we can cast this Languish at some point. So we're not in a hurry to find a green source actually. Could have also taken the Elvish Visionary instead of the Vine. but having more lands with a tutelage to activate it is never bad. Alright, so here we see Perilous Mirror, and an attack for 2 from Welkin turn. So next turn we can, let's see, mill our opponent, we draw Possessed Skaab, and our opponent looks to be just blue-green here. So we can play the Guardians, which can block the Perilous Mirror. What I actually want to do here is cast the Hydrolash on our opponent's turn to help us draw a card and prevent pretty much all the damage that's on the board. And then hopefully our opponent plays another creature so we can Languish a turn later. Acid Moss is gonna make that pretty tricky. So we can't cast the Hydrolash unless we cast it right now. To just cycle it to draw a card, I guess better than nothing. So our opponent destroys a land. Mill our opponent destroys a land and then ramps for a forest. So I'm happy that we have a Gatecreeper Vine, so if we do find green we also find blue. But yeah, we're stuck on 3 lands now, drew another Gatecreeper Vine, so we're not in a great spot. Find another Tutelage, but no blue mana, so I guess we have to cast the only spell we can cast, and pause the turn. Hope our opponent doesn't have another one of those, because that would be super annoying. So we haven't drawn a green source yet. Woodland Bellower, is this gonna get a Reclamation Sage? That would be bad. Alright, instead it's just a Bounding Krasis, but a 6/5 is no joke. And Languish will not be able to kill that. And the Guardians will also not be able to block this profitably, as we draw another blue card. So yeah, let's pause the turn. And I guess we're forced, let's see, if we block the Bellower we take 6. Anchor, alright, we're dead. Alright, let's take a look at our opener. We're on the play. This hand would be great with the second land, but on the play I don't think we can keep this one, as it's a little too risky. Another 1-lander, this time no green. Guess we'll go down to 6. Alright, this hand's acceptable. So here we want to grab a forest, I think. Or actually no. We want to get double black for Languish, so let's grab a swamp. We can do this end of turn. This means the harbor comes into play tapped, but we don't have any 2-drops anyways, so it doesn't really matter. Use this end of turn. So now we have double black for Languish, blue and green mana. So next turn we'll have to decide if we want to run out to Tutelage or Nissa. I think we want to keep Read the Bones for after we play Tutelage. Opponent on black-green, hopefully they don't play Reclamation Sage on the Tutelage, that would be bad for us. I guess we'll have a backup Tutelage, which makes our decision a little easier. Pause the turn. So not in a terrible spot here if there's no Sage. Attack for 1, go to 19. And hope to see a random elf. There we go, perfect. So I think we wait one more turn for Languish. And just cast another Tutelage. We could, let's see. We could just cast Nissa here, which actually also blocks the Visionary. Makes sure we hit our land drop to cast the Languish. We can play Tutelage, hope to draw a 4th land for Languish. Or we can cast Read the Bones now to find that 4th land. think out of those, let's see. If we cast Nissa now, she also dies to our own Languish is part of the problem. So the greediest play is playing Tutelage and hoping we find more lands. Although I guess we can just play Tutelage, take a hit, and then cast Read the Bones and then cast Languish, although then we do take a lot of damage from these elves. So I guess we just cast the Read the Bones here, try to find more land. So we can set up a Languish, find a second Languish, and a Gatecreeper Vine. Don't hate either of those, as Languish is very good against the elf deck. So next turn we can, if we find a land, play Languish, otherwise play Vine, which should be able to block a creature. Either way, I think we're in a decent spot. Dwinen's Elite makes a token. The Archers grows, and there's a fourth land, perfect. So the Archers is a 4/4, but if we get rid of all the other elves, it's also gonna shrink, so even if it's a 5/5, it's still gonna die to a Languish. So here, let's see. I think it's fine to pull the trigger on a Languish since we have a second one. Also makes the Shaman of the pack less scary, as that can hurt us even without attacking in the future. So just Languish, pass the turn, and then next turn we can play both of these, for example, or Vine plus Tutelage, which is great. There's the Shaman, only hits us for 1, so no super scary threat. And Dwinen's Elite, so we could already cast a second Languish here and that would be decent. Or we can be patient and take a small hit. Another opponent. I kind of like playing a second Tutelage and then jumping with the Vine. And I guess we'll grab an island. Think double blue could be useful. Play another Tutelage. And pause a turn. So I'm definitely blocking here since next turn we're planning to Languish. Wild Instinct makes that not really happen, so we'll take quite a hit here. 7, 8, down to 5, but opponent only 1 card left. And we have 2 Tutelages going. And I'm not gonna risk casting Telling Time pre-combat here to find a land, because if we don't we just lose, so let's just play it safe and cast Languish. No pump spell from our opponent, which is good. So yeah. I think we should be able to stabilize from here. Opponent already down to 31 cards. So let's take a look at the graveyard. Only 1 Shaman in the graveyard so far. Unholy Hunger also can gain us 2 life. Alright. So here I think we play Nissa plus Telling Time. I think we wanna Telling Time first, so we can shuffle away 2 cards instead of just 1. So let's do that. I guess we'll take the land and put the Guardians on top, and then we can play Nissa and shuffle away the Guardians that we don't really want to draw. And next turn we get to transform Nissa, unless our opponent kills her right away. Alright, there's a Languish from an elf deck, interesting. So it does get rid of our Nissa, but we could get her back with Possessed Skaab. And now that we drew a fog, I think I'll definitely do that. So play Skaab. And keep up fog and get back Nissa. And pause the turn. Opponent down to 22. We milled a Reclamation Sage. So could be the only copy. Our opponent could also have ways to get creatures back from the graveyard, of course. Alright, opponent plays his own Nissa. And only 6 lands, however, so it's not gonna flip yet, so we do have a chance to Unholy Hunger. And Evolutionary Leap is fine, I guess. Mill our opponent a bunch. So we can play Nissa. Find a forest, Transformer right away, and still cast Unholy Hunger. Let's use the +1. We get Gatecreeper Vine, and I guess we tapped wrong and didn't leave up double black. That's awkward. Oh well. Then we can play Guardians plus Vine, I think is the alternative here. Well, always double check, I guess, is a message. And we might as well attack. No blocks. And play Guardians. Pause the turn. So we'll have Unholy Hunger for another day. Unless our opponent can't find another land, that is. Because then we can just kill Nissa next turn. Down to 13 cards, Nissa does transform. But of course every card our opponent draws means he's more likely to get milled out. Pilgrimage, I don't think our opponent is gonna cast. Instead, Woodland Bellower, with 12 cards left in the library. What's it gonna get? It gets the Shaman of the Pack, which drains us for 1, or just deals 1 damage, I should say. Untap. And mill a bunch. Still have 2 fogs we can use. There's the last Shaman, so that's no longer a worry. Let's plus Nissa here. Reveal Hydrolash. And we could just use the Tutelage here with 7 cards left. Seems a little ambitious. So I'm just going to Unholy Hunger, targeting the Bellower. Leap activates. Elvish Visionary is the revealed card. And I think we just pause the turn here. Although we could attack Nissa here, I guess. No blocks, Nissa down to 1. And we'll pause the turn. Nissa pluses. It's a forest. Visionary. So we can Hydrolash in response, and now when our opponent goes to draw a card with a Visionary, he will lose the game. Alright, sweet, managed to beat the popular elf deck. Drawing Languish of course helps. I wanna thank you for watching, I hope you enjoyed this gameplay, and as always, have a nice day.